Framing and putting things in the right perspective is one of the best things you can do for yourself. The ability to see things correctly is one of the best things you can do for yourself. Everything is mental. I've said it countlessly. It is not the thing that happens to us that causes pain, but the interpretation we give such events. For instance, I invested a lot of money in a business years ago. I've shared the story countless times. So let's approach it from another perspective. So I invested in this business with the hope it would materialize before the year ends from the proceedings I would use to pay my rent and do other things. A lot was placed on this one business, and the universe decided to reward my hard work and effort by collapsing the business. So I was left with nothing. I had nothing. Based on that wise, the landlord was about to kick me out. I had no sort of connection or relationship to restabilize. So from the interpretation of that event, I saw myself as a failure. The business did not profit. Every single thing I invested, all the money down the drain. So the next time I would take an action similar to that, I recalled the previous experience. And guess what? The same thing happened. Until I got to the point where I analyzed the mindset behind the action. And the driving factor behind the action is, in an attempt to gain success, you have to be all in financially. You don't have to create lapses for contingencies. So once I understood that preset as touching life and destiny, everything changed. So I do not need to invest 100% of my finances in one business to reinforce myself psychologically that I'm making progress. I do not need to invest every single thing I have and spend all in an attempt to believe this business will profit. Because sometimes you will take over the island. Sometimes you have to burn bridges to take over the island. The real question is when. And unfortunately, if you don't have enough resources to back you up as you wait, you lose everything. So as that event played out, I came across this concept that said, every situation or circumstance contains with it a spiritual lesson. And once that spiritual lesson is learned, it gives way for something bigger to come. And it was a very interesting concept because once I learned, I do not need to be extreme in an attempt for success. The problem went his way. Another example is this idea of independence. And as entrepreneurs, we would like to take the hardest way possible for the sake of the story, for the sake of the glory. That this happened, I love the implosion, I love the story, and every single person is listening with excitement to hear how you circumvented that mountain. Of course, we love the story. So, based on that mindset, I resisted all kind of help. So I'll be deep in trouble. I knew someone who can help me out, but I would try and do it all myself. I'm being as vulnerable as possible, and if you sit and analyze, most people are not sentient enough to realize the driving force behind actions. So the reason I declined help at the infancy of my career was to encourage the mindset of independence. And of course, there's a balance to it. I'll elaborate before we conclude. But asking for help doesn't mean you're weak. Asking for help doesn't mean you've caught the manifestation process or you're never going to be successful. Of course, like I said, the balance is when the asking becomes one-sided. Once you over rely on relationships, once you over rely on begging, that's where it becomes parasitic, because relationships are supposed to be mutually beneficial, not equally beneficial. So once it becomes one-sided, you've disrupted the whole process. And humans are not built to give indefinitely. Even your parents, who are supposed to be the symbol of agape love, they hope when they're old, you will pay them back. In fact, some parents in different religions see their children as investments. So once they invest in you, invest in your education, they hope once you get married, your dowry is a compensation for every single thing they've done. And in places, especially in the African religion, you see the bride price and you're almost wondering whether it's a Rolls Royce or some sports car that's about to be purchased. But that's not the discourse of tonight. The point I want to highlight is framing of situation is one of the best gifts you can give yourself before the year runs out. The ability to frame situations perfectly is a gift in and of itself. There was this guy, this situation happened recently. This guy, his first property about to be constructed, somewhere along the road, he would carry the doors from the supplier to the site. Of course, not literally, but there's where the transport ends. Instead of employing barrow pushers or hard-labored men, in an attempt to save money, he would lift it up on his head, carry it down to the side, from the mountain top down to the side, and he would repeat this process, and even greet people on the way. Now, a laborer who engages in that activity frowns his face, is trying as much as possible not to see friends on the way, not to meet certain people. So the same activity, but different perception. One is laughing because he knows at the end of it all, once this building is constructed, the returns. The other person is, why is my life like this? This is miserable. So the same activity and different perception. If they were to take action based upon that perception, their moods will be different. I'll repeat the flag analogy. You and I can look at the flag. One might feel patriotic, the other might feel disgusted. So the same object of focus, but different perception. Now, if we are to take action based upon that perception, our results will be vastly apart. So it's not the activity that upsets you in and of itself, but the perception given to that activity. Frame concepts directly. In fact, the negative way of framing things stems from a deep-rooted insecurity. Someone laughs at the corner and, what's wrong with my clothes? It's probably laughing at me. No, my friend, people don't think about you as you think they do. Have you seen someone talking to himself and, excuse me, what was that? Please go outside. And how would I pay my rent? Okay, I've told the landlord I lost a sibling previously. Okay, what new things can I formulate to steal my rent? That's how people think. People are self-absorbed. Involved in an embarrassing situation, you don't show up to school the next day for the next week because you somehow think that stigma is fresh in people's mind. Sure, they might think about it, laugh about it for a day, an hour, a day at most, 2 days. But they move on to something better. So learn how to frame situations right, frame things perfectly. Stop hinging your personality upon results. So I walked up to this lady. I said, hello, you look very pretty. where you headed. Now, or you got pepper sprayed, or she did not agree or conform. Feeding back to yourself that there's something wrong with you or you're the problem, it's a very sincere belief, a very sincere desire to grow, desire to improve, but it can also be destructive if not well administered. The truth is, if I'm pivoting back to this our idea or perception, if you make fun of my height, I'll probably laugh it off because I'm not short. But if you tell someone who's 5'4", it's going to be a whole different conversation, one that might not end well. So every single thing is perception. Perception is the name of the game. So as you begin to frame things right, you move forward. Activities becomes easier. So take action and you'll be fine. As always, my friends, pleasure speaking to you. I'll see you in the next one.